Idaho's wilderness stretches across the horizon like an ancient riddle carved into stone. The Sawtooth Mountains rise in jagged silhouettes, their granite faces glowing gold beneath the first light of dawn. Deep forest canyons echo with the rush of hidden rivers, and quiet valleys lie untouched beneath blankets of pine and shadow. It is a landscape that feels timeless, remote, pristine, and untroubled by the past. But beneath this stillness, Idaho hides impossible artifacts. Objects that defy the timelines taught in archaeology textbooks. Discoveries that hint at a technological culture long vanished. Scattered across the state, researchers, ranchers, hikers, and construction crews have uncovered metal tools older than metallurgy itself, strange alloys found in geological layers where no metal should exist. In caves and rock shelters, explorers have stumbled upon gear-like carvings embedded in prehistoric strata, as though someone thousands of years ago understood mechanisms long before the wheel supposedly arrived in the region. And in remote mountain passes, archaeologists have documented carved devices, rings, discs, and fitted stone components, that no known tribe claims, and no current theory explains. These objects aren't merely unusual. They're anachronisms, pieces of technology existing centuries or millennia before they should. Idaho's official history describes early peoples as hunters, gatherers, and toolmakers bound to Stone Age limitations. But the artifacts surfacing across this rugged terrain suggest something far stranger, a forgotten technological culture, one capable of precision shaping, metal experimentation, and mechanical conceptualization. A culture that left behind traces scattered like breadcrumbs across the Rockies, and then vanished without a trace. The contrast is stark, a quiet wilderness, seemingly untouched, overlaying a past filled with inventions and devices that should never have existed here. And so the question lingers in the cold mountain air, if such technology existed, who made it, and why was it erased? According to the accepted archaeological narrative, Idaho's ancient history follows a familiar, orderly arc. It begins with the Paleo-Indians, hunters who crossed ancient land bridges and navigated the Snake River basin with simple stone tools. They were followed by early archaic groups, mobile bands who crafted baskets, chipped projectile points, and left behind fire pits and seasonal camps. Later came the Shoshone-Bannock peoples and other plateau cultures, skilled in fishing, plant gathering, and stone tool production. Their technology, as textbooks insist, remained firmly rooted in the Stone Age, obsidian blades, bone tools, wooden weapons, simple pottery, and woven shelters. In this view, Idaho's ancient peoples were resourceful and intelligent, but technologically limited. No metallurgy. No machines. No precision engineering. But the land itself refuses to agree. Across Idaho's mountains and river valleys, metal-like artifacts have surfaced from layers far too old for metallurgy to exist in North America. Some resemble hammered copper or bronze, yet predate the region's first known metal use by thousands of years. Analyses in older reports hint at alloys, combinations of metals no early culture in this region should have understood. In prehistoric strata, excavators have found stones shaped like mechanical components, gears, discs with teeth, interlocking forms, and symmetrical rings. Mainstream interpretation dismisses these as natural fracturing or abstract motifs, yet their uniform spacing and engineered appearance make coincidence increasingly unlikely. Then there are the carvings, complex diagrams etched into basalt walls and cave surfaces. Some depict spirals connected by straight lines, others resemble schematics or blueprint-style geometry. A few petroglyphs seem to illustrate mechanisms, rods, pivots, and circular devices. But the most troubling fact is their age. Many carvings predate the cultures attributed to them by thousands of years, suggesting the artists belonged to a civilization no longer recognized. Even more perplexing are excavation layers where advanced tools are found alongside primitive ones. A perfectly drilled bead or polished stone ring lying beside crude flint flakes. A shaped disc of unknown composition buried under debris from hunter-gatherer camps. This inconsistency implies that Idaho may have hosted overlapping cultural phases, one primitive and one far more technologically capable, or that later groups inherited objects they did not create. Science tries to compress Idaho's history into a simple progression. Idaho's artifacts fight back. The contradictions are too numerous to ignore: metallurgy where metallurgy shouldn't exist, mechanisms where no wheels or gears should appear, carvings older than the societies credited with them, and tools requiring techniques beyond the capacity of known cultures. As these anomalies accumulate, one unsettling possibility grows harder to avoid: Idaho may preserve evidence of a forgotten technological phase in early North America, a chapter erased, ignored, or buried beneath the mountains. Idaho's Owyhee country is one of the most remote, rugged regions in the American West, a volcanic wilderness of red canyons, basalt plateaus, and windswept sage where time seems to hold its breath. Yet it is here, in these desolate expanses, that some of the strangest artifacts ever recorded in North America were unearthed. Known collectively as the Owyhee mystery objects, these finds emerged during 19th and early 20th century mining operations, sparking whispers of impossible technology buried in prehistoric stone. The most unsettling discoveries began with miners examining clay deposits and basalt outcrops. In several cases, they reported stones with embedded metallic pieces, tiny rods, thin plates, or mineralized fragments that appeared to be intentionally embedded within otherwise solid rock. Geologists could not determine how metals could have naturally formed inside such deposits, leading many to suspect the stones had been worked, shaped, or altered by unknown means long before the surrounding sediments hardened. But the discovery that thrust the Owyhee region into enduring controversy was a small, gear-like object reportedly found encased in ancient clay. Descriptions from early reports described teeth so evenly spaced that they suggested mechanical design. Some witnesses claimed the gear appeared to be made of mineralized metal, while others believed it was stone carved to mimic mechanical parts. Skeptics argued it was a hoax or mining debris, yet the miners insisted the clay layer was undisturbed and far older than any human technology acknowledged by history. The artifact vanished into a private collection before proper documentation could occur, leaving behind only written accounts and lingering doubt. Other miners unearthed curious drill bit impressions in prehistoric layers, clean, cylindrical holes bored into stone that should not have been touched by metal tools. These impressions were remarkably uniform, with depth and diameter far too consistent to result from natural erosion. Early surveyors dismissed the marks as oddities, but modern machinists who have examined surviving samples note that the patterns resemble the work of a mechanical drill, not the random abrasion of wind or water. Even stranger were reports of hollow stone spheres containing internal components. A handful of these spheres, each no larger than a fist, were said to rattle when shaken. When cracked open, miners described carefully shaped internal chambers or mineralized fragments arranged in patterns that looked intentional rather than natural. Some spheres appeared to have been lathed or rotated during shaping, a technique supposedly unknown to early North American cultures. Almost all of these spheres disappeared, sold to collectors, discarded as curiosities, or stored in boxes where they were later lost. Mainstream archaeology maintains that the Owyhee objects are misinterpretations, exaggerations, or outright fabrications, claims unsupported by the physical samples that remain. Yet even the surviving pieces challenge conventional explanation. Some show machining-like striations. Others contain metal traces in geologic contexts older than known metallurgy. None align easily with tribal histories or natural processes. The tension surrounding these artifacts is palpable. Scientists hesitate to engage out of fear of lending credibility to fringe theories. Institutions rarely comment. Local collectors remain secretive. And in the absence of official investigation, the Owyhee mystery objects linger in the twilight between hoax and history. But for those who study Idaho's archaeological anomalies, these strange finds point toward a chilling possibility, that fragments of ancient engineering, tools from a forgotten technological culture, lie buried beneath the Owyhee wilderness, waiting to be rediscovered. Along the wild corridors of the Salmon and Snake Rivers, where sheer cliffs drop into roaring whitewater and ancient basalt walls glow beneath the sun, lie some of the most enigmatic carvings in North America. These are not simple ceremonial spirals or animal motifs commonly seen in plateau rock art. They are something else entirely: geometric engravings, grids, intersecting circles, spirals arranged in mathematical progression, and patterns that resemble, uncannily, blueprints. Archaeologists classify them as ritual symbols or clan markers. But their placement, complexity, and uncanny mechanical qualities raise a deeper, more unsettling question: were these carvings early forms of technical knowledge? The grid panels, more than art, some of the most striking engravings consist of perfectly spaced grids etched into the stone with a precision that seems almost impossible for a culture without metal tools. The lines are straight, parallel, and deeply carved, suggesting repeated scoring with a hard, sharp instrument. Mainstream researchers say these grids may represent calendars or ceremonial pathways. But engineers who have examined high-resolution scans notice something peculiar: the grids resemble schematic layouts, the kind used to map stress distribution, airflow direction, or water channels. Certain squares are emphasized with deeper carvings, almost like nodes or control points. Coincidence? Possibly. But too many panels follow the same logic to dismiss the pattern entirely. Rotational spirals and pressure diagrams further upstream, near narrow canyon passages, spirals appear, not the casual, rounded spirals seen in other native art, but tight, symmetrical spirals with spacing consistent enough to suggest measurement. Some spirals terminate in small circles or cross-shaped notches, giving them the appearance of pressure flow diagrams used in modern engineering. When mapped to water flow through the canyon, the shapes align eerily well with regions of turbulence, vortex formation, and pressure shifts. Could ancient peoples have studied river mechanics? Or do these symbols preserve knowledge from a group who understood physical forces far earlier than mainstream archaeology allows? Archaeologists argue for ceremonial meaning. But the patterns argue for science. The mechanical carvings, schematics frozen in stone, the most controversial engravings, often overlooked in official reports, are those that resemble mechanical components: concentric circles joined by rods, shapes identical to gear hubs, rectangular outlines with internal divisions like machine housings. One carving near the confluence of the salmon and snake depicts a circular form with evenly spaced radial lines. To the untrained eye it looks decorative, but machinists insist the spacing matches rotational symmetry used in early gear teeth. Another panel contains elongated ovals connected by narrow channels, almost identical to fluid flow designs found in early hydraulic sketches. If these symbols were ceremonial, their creators had an extraordinary intuitive sense for geometric and mechanical concepts. If they were not ceremonial, then Idaho once hosted a culture with engineering knowledge far beyond what its timeline suggests. Proto-writing or lost technology? Some researchers propose a third interpretation: these engravings are part of a proto-writing system, encoding technical knowledge in symbolic form. Similar hybrid symbol systems appear in ancient China, Mesopotamia, and pre-Columbian South America, where early engineering and spiritual practice often merged. Could the Salmon River engravings represent a prehistoric instructional language? A way to record inventions, mechanisms, or tools. A memory system for technological processes long forgotten. It is possible. And it is terrifying. Because if true, these carvings are not art. They are records. Blueprints. Diagrams. And relics of knowledge belonging to a civilization now erased. The cliffs hold these secrets in silence. The river roars below, drowning whatever stories once explained them. But the carvings remain, etched into ancient basalt like the last pages of a manual whose machine has long since disappeared. Idaho's Lemhi Valley, a quiet stretch of high desert framed by rugged mountains and cold rivers, is the last place anyone expects to find evidence of ancient metallurgy. According to the official record, no culture in the region smelted metal before European contact. The tribes of the Plateau and Great Basin worked bone, wood, shell, and stone, but never copper, bronze, or any refined metal. And yet, over the past 2 centuries, this remote valley has produced discoveries that challenge that assumption to its core. It began with strange metal fragments uncovered by early settlers. Ranchers turning fields reported finding thin hammered copper pieces in soil layers supposedly thousands of years older than the first known metal use in the region. These fragments showed signs of shaping, flattened surfaces, curved edges, and in some cases, punctured holes as though meant for fasteners or bindings. Geologists who examined them proposed they were natural copper nuggets weathered by time. But farmers insisted the pieces were too smooth, too uniform, too obviously worked by human hands. Then came the rumors from miners. In the late 1800s, prospectors searching for gold claimed they found smelted objects embedded in ancient deposits, melted blobs of copper, oddly shaped metallic shards, and a handful of blackened fragments resembling slag. Some miners even reported discovering stone-lined pits filled with charcoal and hardened residue, structures that looked suspiciously like crude furnaces. These stories were widely dismissed as exaggerations, yet old mining journals contain enough consistent detail to raise serious questions. More recently, private collectors in the Lemhi region have revealed polished metal plates and small copper tools passed down through families. One collector described a wedge-shaped object with beveled edges, another a round copper disc with a near-perfect hole drilled through its center. These objects have never undergone formal analysis, either out of fear of losing them to the authorities or skepticism that experts would accept them. Still, the craftsmanship described is far beyond what any known Idahoan culture could have produced during the prehistoric era. The controversy deepens when comparing these finds to the Old World. Early metallurgy sites like Catalhoyuk in Turkey, dating back nearly 8,500 years, show simple hammered copper tools. The techniques used, heating, pounding, shaping, mirror what the Lemhi Valley artifacts appear to demonstrate. Yet the Old World had continuous development leading into the Bronze Age. Idaho, by contrast, offers no cultural bridge, no evolutionary path, no metallurgical tradition to explain the objects. If the Lemhi metals are genuine human-made artifacts, they imply one of two shocking possibilities: an unknown culture in Idaho mastered early metallurgy, centuries or millennia before archaeology acknowledges. Idaho interacted with distant cultures who carried metallurgical knowledge across vast distances, a scenario mainstream scholars reject outright. Neither explanation fits comfortably within the accepted timeline. Even more chilling is the pattern: every time metallurgical anomalies surface in the Lemhi Valley, they are either dismissed without testing, quietly stored away, or left in private hands. No institution has pursued the matter seriously, perhaps because the implications disrupt too much. If early Idahoans worked metal, then the entire history of North American technology must be rewritten. If they inherited the knowledge from outsiders, then ancient trade routes were far more expansive than believed. And if these objects belonged to a culture lost entirely, then Idaho may have once been home to a technological society erased long before recorded memory. The mountains of the Lemhi Valley stand silent, but the artifacts whisper a different truth: that someone, long ago, knew how to shape fire into metal. Long before archaeologists sifted Idaho's soil for clues, the Shoshone, Paiute, and Bannock carried stories of mysterious peoples who lived in the mountains, beings who worked with fire, shaped strange materials, and forged tools unlike anything the tribes themselves ever used. These tales, passed carefully from elder to youth, describe not ancestors, but others, older cultures whose knowledge seemed almost supernatural. Among the Shoshone, one of the oldest legends speaks of the people of the shining stones. These beings were said to craft tools that glinted like sunlight on water, objects far harder and sharper than bone or obsidian. They supposedly lived in high caves and canyon shelters, emerging rarely and leaving behind fragments that later peoples found but could not replicate. Elders insisted these shimmering tools were not the work of their own lineage; they were here before us, one account says. They were makers of things we do not know how to make. The Paiute tells similar stories of mountain inventors, a reclusive group who mastered the secret of stone fire, fire hot enough to change the earth itself. Some versions describe glowing pits beneath the mountains, where these inventors heated stones until they flowed like sap and hardened into new shapes. In other variants, the inventors forged blades that never dulled, objects that tribes encountered only as gifts or warnings left at sacred sites. The Paiute consistently stressed that these makers were not their ancestors, but another people entirely, one who vanished or returned to the sky. The Bannock contribute yet another layer, tales of builders who used fire to shape earth, crafting tools and ornaments in hidden caverns. Their legends speak of metal spirits who taught early humans how to read the sky, track seasons, and understand the earth's hidden materials. Some stories depict visitors descending from the heavens to teach these early skills, while others describe mountain-dwelling teachers who possessed knowledge older than memory itself. In many of these oral traditions, the metalworking peoples are portrayed as teachers, not enemies, figures who brought knowledge, tools, or warnings. Yet they are also described as fragile, prone to catastrophes, or hunted by forces unknown. Their disappearance is often linked to floods, fires, or the earth swallowing their homes. Archaeologists treat these legends as symbolic metaphors, reflections of volcanic activity, star lore, or mythic storytelling. But the correlation between these tales and the archaeological anomalies scattered across Idaho is difficult to ignore. Metallurgical fragments in ancient layers. Gear-like carvings. Drill bit impressions predating known tools. Polished metal pieces found where no metal should exist. If these stories reflect even fragments of real memory, then Idaho's tribes inherited a landscape already shaped by earlier peoples who mastered technologies the tribes themselves never practiced. The elders insist on one thing with remarkable consistency: the metal people were not us. They came before. They knew things we no longer know. Across Idaho's volcanic highlands, concealed beneath layers of basalt and forests untouched for centuries, lie cave systems that challenge every assumption about ancient life in the region. These caverns, some natural lava tubes, others suspiciously geometric, have produced artifacts, chambers, and architectural features that no known culture in Idaho's timeline should have possessed. They are rarely discussed, often dismissed, and sometimes quietly sealed off. But the stories from miners, spelunkers, and early survey teams tell a very different tale. Explorers in the Oahe, Lemhi, and Sawtooth regions describe stumbling into stone-lined chambers deep inside caves, rooms with walls carefully fitted together using flattened stones, arranged in patterns almost identical to early masonry. Some chambers feature curved corners or angled entryways, architectural choices too deliberate to be accidental. Geologists labeled them strange erosion pockets, yet the symmetry of the stonework suggests conscious construction. In certain caves, researchers documented cut walls showing tool marks, straight grooves, parallel striations, and chisel-like patterns in basalt, one of the hardest stones to shape. These marks do not match claw scrapes, natural fractures, or water erosion. Instead, they resemble the signature of sharp tools or abrasive techniques unknown to pre-contact Idaho cultures. One cave near the Snake River displayed a perfectly straight recess carved into the wall, as if meant to hold a beam or mechanism. Soot analysis in several volcanic caves reveals controlled heat, not random campfire remnants. The soot layers form neat, repeating bands, evidence of sustained, high-temperature burning. Some deposits contain mineral residues typically found in metalworking or high-heat experimentation. This has led independent researchers to suspect these caves may have been used as furnace chambers, forging sites, or workshops by a culture capable of manipulating heat with precision. Perhaps the most perplexing features are the ventilation holes in multiple cave systems, small, perfectly circular openings bored through basalt walls. These holes angle upward, as though designed to release smoke or draw air. Their smooth interiors appear machined rather than chipped, with diameters consistent across multiple sites. Natural volcanic gases can create vents, but not with such uniformity, and never in the exact locations miners and spelunkers repeatedly describe. Then come the stories officials rarely acknowledge. Miners working near Chalice and Salmon claim to find mechanical-looking objects deep inside cave recesses, mineralized rods, cog-like fragments, and oddly shaped stone blocks with interlocking designs. One miner recounted discovering a rectangular stone block with a recessed notch that fit perfectly into another piece, like components of an ancient machine. Before the items could be studied, federal agents reportedly confiscated them, citing site safety and land protection. Spelunkers in the 1970s described entering a chamber lined with stacked stone blocks, each shaped with beveled edges. When they reported the find, the cave was sealed off under a geological preservation order. No official documentation exists of the chamber structure, but photographs taken before closure show angular blocks that bear no resemblance to natural lava formations. Scientists classify these features as coincidences: basalt fractures, unusual erosion, collapsed lava shelves, natural venting tubes. But these explanations crumble under scrutiny. The precision of the cuts, the intentional layout of chambers, the soot distribution, the ventilation shafts, and the mechanical-like artifacts all point toward deliberate engineering, far beyond what any recognized Idaho culture is believed to have accomplished. If these caves were workshops, smelting sites, or storage chambers, they belonged to a technological society now erased from the historical record. And if officials sealed them without investigation, the question becomes even more unnerving: what exactly was found in those depths, and why was the world not allowed to see it? As Idaho's forbidden artifacts accumulate, hammered copper older than metallurgy, gear-like stones carved in prehistoric layers, cave chambers built with engineering precision, a larger, more haunting picture begins to form. These findings are not isolated accidents or misinterpretations. They point toward a technological culture that once moved through Idaho's mountains, river systems, and volcanic caves, and then vanished so completely that only fragments remain. Scholars avoid the topic. Officials bury the evidence. But the anomalies demand explanation. Here are the leading theories, bold, controversial, and incomplete, yet each capturing a piece of a forgotten world. 1. A pre-Ice Age mountain civilization wiped out by glacial flood. Some researchers believe Idaho once hosted a pre-Ice Age culture, a mountain-dwelling society with knowledge of heat, pressure, and stone shaping. During the last glacial melt, cataclysmic floods tore through the northwest, carving canyons, drowning valleys, and erasing nearly all evidence of early peoples. This would explain metal fragments in layers older than known settlement drill bit impressions in ancient basalt interlocking stone pieces buried beneath Ice Age deposits. If true, Idaho's mountains may hold the shattered remains of a civilization older than any officially recognized in North America. 2. A lost plateau culture with early metallurgy. Another theory proposes an advanced plateau culture, a group predating the Shoshone and Bannock, who discovered early metallurgy and engineering techniques but left little trace due to their nomadic or semi-migratory lifestyle. In this model, stone furnaces, soot layers, and hammered copper objects reflect a short-lived metallurgical experiment that collapsed before leaving a cultural footprint. Their knowledge may have been guarded or ritualized, passed to few, and lost after a catastrophic event or population shift. This aligns with controlled heat signatures inside volcanic caves, polished copper implements found on ranch lands, oral traditions describing mountain inventors. 3. Migration from ancient Asia bringing forgotten knowledge. Idaho's artifacts bear similarities to early technologies from prehistoric Siberia, ancient Mongolia, early Japanese Jaman metallurgy, steppe cultures experimenting with stone gears and pressure diagrams. Some researchers propose that small, technologically skilled groups crossed ancient northern land routes long before mainstream timelines allow. Their knowledge, stone drilling, heat manipulation, metallurgy, may have been lost as they merged with or disappeared among local populations. If true, Idaho could be the last echo of an ancient Transberingian knowledge transfer. 4. A North American technological society erased by cataclysm. This theory connects Idaho to anomalies across the continent. The hammer-like objects found in Texas, the Lake Michigan, stone circles, anomalous copper tools in the Great Lakes, prehistoric carved stone spheres resembling bearings. It suggests that long before known tribes, a technological society spread across North America, experimenting with tools, alloys, and mechanisms. Then a sudden cataclysm, volcanic eruptions, massive floods, or drastic climate collapse, wiped out their settlements. Idaho's caves, with their engineered chambers and ventilation shafts, may have been workshops, storage sites, or refuge spaces used by this forgotten civilization. 5. A global network of proto-engineers. The strangest, yet most globally consistent, theory proposes that Idaho was part of a worldwide prehistoric network of early inventors. Similar out-of-place artifacts appear across the planet: megalithic smoothing in Peru, ancient gears in Antikythera, Greece, precision stone spheres in Costa Rica and Bosnia, early copper culture stretching from Europe to the Middle East, drilled stone artifacts in Japan and India. These parallels suggest that early civilizations may have shared, or independently developed, rudimentary mechanical knowledge, testing and exchanging techniques across continents long before recorded history. If so, Idaho's role becomes pivotal, a missing link connecting Old World proto-engineers with New World innovators. The cinematic possibility: each theory is incomplete. Each clashes with mainstream archaeology. Yet the evidence buried in Idaho's mountains, caves, and valleys refuses to disappear. What if Idaho was not an outlier, but a center, a hub in an ancient network of inventors who experimented with fire, stone, and metal? What if these early engineers left behind blueprints carved into river cliffs, tools hidden in ancient strata, and chambers built with forgotten techniques? What if their world ended abruptly, leaving only whispers in rock art and legends? Perhaps Idaho's impossible artifacts are not anomalies at all. Perhaps they are clues, fragments of a prehistoric technological heritage shared across the world. And perhaps the lost culture that mastered this knowledge did not vanish without purpose. They were erased. For decades, Idaho's strangest artifacts have surfaced in the wrong places, in the wrong layers, and with the wrong implications. Yet despite their significance, or perhaps because of it, these discoveries remain largely ignored, buried in footnotes, or quietly dismissed. The truth is not that the evidence is weak. The truth is that Idaho's ancient tech anomalies threaten the foundation of North American prehistory, and that alone makes them forbidden. First, these finds contradict the established archaeological timeline. According to mainstream models, no prehistoric culture in Idaho used metal, machined stone, or engineered components. Everything was simple: stone tools, bone implements, and woven fibers. But when miners pull out hammered copper plates from ancient clay, or spelunkers find gear-like stone carvings deep in volcanic caves, those discoveries force scholars to choose between rewriting American history, or ignoring the evidence. Most choose the latter. This is partly because Idaho's anomalies challenge the accepted model of technological evolution. Archaeology assumes slow, linear progress: simple tools, complex tools, metallurgy, machines. Idaho's artifacts disrupt that latter. Here, primitive objects and advanced ones appear side by side, as if two radically different cultures coexisted, one Stone Age, one far more sophisticated. Such a scenario undermines cherished academic frameworks, and institutions are notoriously reluctant to overturn the models their reputations are built upon. Complicating matters further is the nature of the finds themselves. Many were uncovered during 19th and early 20th century mining operations, chaotic, undocumented, and often dangerous settings. Miners rarely kept detailed notes. They kept objects. They bartered them. They tossed them aside. As a result, thousands of anomalous artifacts were lost, sold, or absorbed into private collections long before archaeologists could analyze them. Even today, many items sit in ranch houses, attics, or old trunks, regarded as curiosities rather than revolutionary evidence. When unusual objects are brought to experts, they often trigger immediate skepticism. Not because the evidence is weak, but because the political and professional cost of accepting them is high. Researchers fear fueling pseudo-history debates, Atlantis claims, alien theories, fringe narratives. To avoid controversy, they label anomalous items as misidentified, natural formations, or hoaxes, even when such explanations strain credibility. But beneath this cautious surface lies a more unsettling possibility: some institutions may have quietly archived Idaho's anomalous artifacts rather than confront their implications. Archaeologists have privately admitted to encountering objects that don't fit, only to see them moved into storage or restricted collections. University vaults contain items catalogued with vague labels like unknown tool, non-cultural object, or unverified specimen. Museums have drawers full of artifacts never displayed because they raise more questions than they answer. The pattern is unmistakable: discover something that fits the timeline it is celebrated. Discover something that challenges the timeline it disappears. Is this intentional suppression? Or simply institutional discomfort? Perhaps both. What truly makes these discoveries forbidden is not conspiracy, but fear. Fear of rewriting textbooks, fear of losing academic certainty, fear of acknowledging a chapter of North American history that has been completely erased. Idaho's artifacts imply a technological culture that should not exist, and that alone is enough to make the scientific world look the other way. Yet the objects persist. The engravings remain. The metal fragments surface again and again. Idaho's mountains do not care what the textbooks say. They remember. Idaho's mountains stand like silent witnesses, their basalt cliffs and hidden caverns guarding secrets older than recorded memory. From the Sawtooths to the Oahe Desert, from the Salmon River gorges to the Lemhi Valley plains, this land is stitched together by stories etched in stone, stories of impossible artifacts, forbidden chambers, metal tools older than metallurgy, and engravings that resemble the blueprints of forgotten machines. What lies beneath Idaho's wilderness is not simply history. It is a challenge, a fracture in the timeline we thought we understood. Every passing year, erosion exposes something new: a polished copper fragment where no metal should exist, a gear-like carving in a cliffside far older than any known mechanism, a stone chamber shaped with engineering precision deep inside a volcanic cave. Mining operations, hikers, divers, and researchers continue to uncover objects that make no sense, that refuse classification, that belong to no known culture. These anomalies do not fade, they multiply. Meanwhile, technology tightens its grip on the truth. LiDAR scans reveal geometric structures beneath forest canopies. Ground-penetrating radar finds straight walls inside mountainsides. AI pattern analysis matches Idaho carvings to early engineering designs seen across the ancient world. Each breakthrough pushes the official narrative further into discomfort. Idaho's quiet wilderness may hide the greatest technological secrets of ancient North America, secrets that survived flood, fire, burial, and erasure. The mountains have preserved what human institutions did not. They have kept the evidence locked beneath their stone skins, waiting for the right moment, the right eyes, the right questions. Because if the impossible artifacts are real, if ancient engineers once walked these valleys and shaped tools with knowledge now lost, then the history of human innovation is far older, far stranger, and far more global than we have ever dared imagine. The canyons know. The caves remember. The rivers whisper. And the mountains keep their silence, for now. If ancient technology once thrived in Idaho, what else lies buried beneath its stone and silence, waiting to rewrite our understanding of human history?